Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So, for today's video, I am making my mermaid doll. And if you guys didn't know, last year I made one and I had a really fun experience working on her. I love mermaid dolls. I think that they are some of the most fun customs to make. They're just, they're just magical little creatures and I love them so much. If you guys didn't see my mermaid doll from last year, this is actually her. She's cute or whatever. For this custom, I got together with two of my YouTube doll friends, Josephine's Creatures and Fantasy Finder, and we all made mermaids. They're just a bunch of mermaid friends, you know. But yeah, definitely check out their dolls. I think they're stunning, like silly stunning. They will be listed in the description box with all their links down below, so check them out there. One of my favorite doll lines from Monster High is the Great Scarier Reef doll line. If y'all don't know what that is, it's basically like the mermaid, the sea creature doll line that Monster High made, and it is some of the coolest shit I ever seen. I'm serious. I love it so much. I'm slowly but surely collecting all of the dolls from this line for my stock box. I decided to use Laguna from this doll line because I like her little fishy face and I figured she'd be a good base. So what are we doing with her? I got inspiration from two very different things. One of them is the rainbow fish, which was a favorite book of mine when I was a kid, and the other is a Yoshitaka Amano painting that has mermaids in it that I thought was really pretty. With all that being said, let's get on to customizing the doll. This Lagoona doll comes with these like cute little wings, but we're not going to be using those, so I'm going to be taking them off. We do the basics of prepping the doll, so cutting off the hair and then putting her head in hot water so that the vinyl gets squishy and you can easily pop it off. Putting a screwdriver inside her head and scraping around to get the glue plugs out, and then taking said glue plugs out through her neck hole with needle nose pliers. The last step of prepping is taking acetone nail polish remover and taking all the paint off her face. Lagoona has one of the cutest face molds. I've painted her once before and something about her face just really inspires me. For hair, I'm using this multicolored 100% acrylic yarn because the color scheme sort of went with the rainbow fish, and I'm looping it around this bag handle. Mystery solved, by the way. This is officially a bag handle. Someone sent me a link to the bag that this is a handle for. It's a bag handle, y'all. I don't have the bag that it's a handle to, but it's a bag handle. Anyway, I am brushing out the yarn with a cat brush. Before rerooting the hair, I'm painting the scalp a dark fuchsia color with acrylic paint. This makes it so that if there's any gaps in the reroot, it's not as obvious. To reroot, I am cutting off chunks of each of the different colors of the yarn, so the dark blue, the purple, and the pink, and I'm alternating colors that I'm rerooting. This just makes it so that there's a nice blend of colors in her hair. The reroot tool that I'm using is an X-Acto blade holder that I took a needle and I cut the top of the part that you thread through off of the needle. To make all that hair stay in place, we're taking some Fabri-Tac glue and I'm squeezing that in through the neck hole. Moving on to the face up, I spray the doll 3 times Mr. Super Clear, waiting 15 minutes between each spray and wearing a respirator mask, and then we start painting. I mentioned you guys in my last video that when I do face ups, I do usually do like a quick Google of whatever doll I'm painting and then Monster High doll repaint. So in this case it was Lagoona Monster High doll repaints, just to see what my sort of like preference with features or more specifically eyes are for like whatever doll I'm painting. And what I noticed when I was looking up Lagoona doll repaints is that I really liked it when people gave Lagoona really big eyes as opposed to smaller eyes. I just thought it really lended to her incredibly cute face. So I'm going to be drawing her eyes bigger than her eye mold. I'm trying to lean into the whole cute thing, so I made her irises really big. Something I found with doll repaints is that if you make the irises really big, it just gives them a very cutesy, like sort of wide-eyed look. Whereas if you make the irises smaller, it'll give them a more sexy, mature look. I added a bit of light pink blush to her cheeks, her forehead, her nose, and her chin. The fish in the rainbow fish has yellow lips, so I figured, hey, it's not my usual choice, but it'll lend into the whole rainbow kind of colorful look that I want this mermaid to have, so I gave her yellow lips. I shade around her face with blues, purples, pinks, and reds. I gave her my beloved blotchy blushing, and I've gotten questions before if I'll ever make a doll without blotchy blushing, and the answer is yes. Men. I just like how it looks too much on the ladies. I'm sorry if you don't like it. To be honest, I'm not sorry. I just mainly, like, everything I do with dolls is because I like it, if y'all haven't noticed. I'm pretty stubborn in that regard. On to another one of my loves, which is veins. I add branch-like pencil marks around the eyes and the forehead. I gave her yellow eyes because I thought they go nicely with her yellow lips. To give her lips some wrinkles, I used a dark red watercolor pencil, and I'm just adding little flicks of lines to her upper and lower lips. I want to give her a little bit more shading, so I took a Q-tip and red pastels and I tapped that on the middle of her upper and lower lip. For brows, since she has multicolored hair, I could have used a couple different colors, but I chose to use the color that stood out to me the most, which was like a fuchsia color. And I'm giving her straight, sort of slanted eyebrows. This is to give her a sweet, cute, concerned look. Onto the pupils. So I initially gave her a little circle pupil with purple watercolor pencil, and then I took a Q-tip and purple pastels and I just tapped that on top to give it more of a blended look. I gave the gradient in her eyes a little bit more intensity with a Q-tip and orange pastel. I just tapped that onto the top of her eye and sort of flicked down gently to blend it in with the yellow. Since we did a lot of shading to the eyes, we have to bring back the highlights with a white watercolor pencil, so I'm just adding lines of highlights around the eyes and the lips. Since I added highlights, I lost a little bit of the definition to her eyelids, or more specifically the lines of her eyelids. So I took a dark purple watercolor pencil and I'm just going over the lines of her lids. I love me some macro pearl pigment, and this doll is no exception, so I'm just adding glitter all around her face. With white watercolors, I go over where I put the white watercolor pencil. This is the final stage of highlights that I'm putting on the doll's face. By the way, if y'all are ever curious about what brushes I use when I do these very, very tiny lines, they are in the description box always. Also, all of the supplies that I use are in the description box if you guys are ever curious about what I use on dolls. Taking my Arteza metallic watercolor in gold, I'm adding little lines of highlights to her lips. And I think this looks so nice. I actually really like how the yellow lips turned out on this doll. Maybe I'm gonna do some more yellow lips, who knows? With a really light yellow watercolor, I add a ring of highlight around her iris. On the left side of that ring that we just added, I'm adding gold watercolor on top. I wanted to try something new with this face up because I was feeling fancy or something. So I added a little C shape above the pupil, and at first I didn't know how I felt about it, but I actually think it looks pretty cool. To give her eyes a sort of subtle eyeshadowy look, I took some pink Arteza mica powder and I tapped that on the inner portion and outer portion of her upper lid. With more Pearl-X pigment, I tapped some gold Pearl-X onto her lips. I did my usual kind of blocky eye shines on the upper part of her iris. With a red watercolor pencil, I added some quick flicks or lines of red sort of radiating out from the pupils. Lately, I've been trying to work on my lash game, specifically my lower lash game, so I'm just trying to like make them very curved, specifically on the lower lash line, instead of pointing them straight down. I just feel like it gives them a sort of crazy, unruly look, but it's really flattering down there, if that makes sense. I go over the lashes that I laid down with pencil with black watercolor. This just makes them very dark, so it really draws your eye to that area. A pretty effect to the lashes that I like to do is take a rose gold watercolor pencil and I do a couple of flicks of this on the outer lashes. Now for them eyebrows, so I am going in with a wet dark red watercolor pencil and I am just going over what I laid down with pencil with some watercolors. And I am trying to make them about as even as I can, but they're not super even, and I'm not too concerned with it because your eyebrows are sisters, they're not twins. Or at least that's what I like to tell myself because my eyebrows are quite uneven. So we're doing the best we can here. With rose gold as well as white paint, I add a couple of dots of highlights to the waterline. I do a dot of metallic red watercolors on the pupil. Add Vallejo gloss varnish to her lips to make them all nice and glossy. I'm not someone who adds gloss to the eyes because I just find that it makes it really difficult to take photos. I decided her eyes could be a little bit more special, so I took a chunky red glitter and I glued that to her pupil with some Elmer's glue all. Finally onto the body. So she has some markings on her tail that I'm just gonna be taking off. To be honest, this isn't super necessary because we're gonna be covering it with stuff, but to take those markings off, I used acetone nail polish remover. You have to be a little bit careful with this because it melts plastic. I was watching Mr. Super Customs recently and he did a doll that was like an aquatic doll, but he took the paint off of Laguna's lower arms because they're actually transparent, and I was like, that's pretty cool. So I'm going to be doing a very similar thing with the acetone nail polish remover. The weird thing about this doll though is that the hands aren't transparent. So normally Laguna's hands are also transparent. I don't know why they aren't on this doll, but I had to switch them out for different hands because I wanted the hands to be transparent as well. The hands to Laguna were actually a lighter blue color. I'm not really sure why they were like a dark blue on this doll, but they're normally a lighter blue color, which isn't a huge deal because we're going to be creating a gradient in that area anyway once we start blushing her. Her tail fin, okay, it's pretty cool, but I thought the little swirly bits were a little strange, so I'm going to be cutting those off with a saw. On to the blushing. So I'm adding a lot of blue pastel to the arms, specifically where the upper arm and the lower arm connect, as well as where the hand and the lower arm connect, because I just wanted the gradient in these areas to be a bit smoother. For the rest of the blushing on the body, I'm just basically using the same tones that I used on the face for the body. Something that I wanted to mention is that I like for these Great Scary or Reef dolls how they have a little bit more definition on their stomach. It just adds to like the anatomy on the doll. It just looks nice. I lost footage of me filling in the back where her wings were with epoxy sculpt, but I did that and then I painted over them with like the grayish blue color that she is. I wanted her bottom fin to be a darker blue, so I painted that with a dark blue metallic watercolor, and I went over top of that with a dark blue Pearlix pigment to make it even more pigmented. I added a couple dots of gold to that bottom fin with my gold metallic watercolors. Her tail is really smooth, but I wanted to have more of a scaly look, like a traditional mermaid. So I'm taking a hole punch and some foam, and I'm basically cutting out scales with this hole punch and the foam, and also this glittery cardstock. I'm hole punching this as well, and craft glue, and I'm just overlapping these two things for days on end, and going slightly insane because of it, because it just took so long. So many scales. A big tip that I have for this, and this might seem obvious, but also maybe it isn't to some people, is to start from the bottom and go up. This just makes it so that your scales look believable in how they overlap. With the real MVP of this project, the metallic arteje watercolors, I know I mentioned this, but I really do use the crap out of this palette. I took a duochrome purple, and I'm going over the foam scales with this. I actually ran out of the purpley scales, like, at the top of the tail, and I had to switch to pink, but it didn't really matter because this made them all blend in together. Oh, by the way, if this also isn't obvious, the glittery scales are an ode back to the Rainbow Fish book. To make the tail have a bit more of a nicer transition, I tapped some of that purpley metallic watercolor around where her tail begins. I wanted to mention also, if you guys are looking to participate in MERMAY but you're unsure of how you want to make the tail, my friend Dolly Mixtures here on YouTube actually posted a pattern to their Etsy that is a mermaid tail. The pattern has a couple different styles of mermaid tails, and I'll link it down in the description box if you guys are curious. I saw Morg's dolls using these dragonfly glazes in one of her recent repaints, and I was like, that looks very pretty. So I picked them up and I'm putting them on the foam part of my scale, and they are very pretty. They're basically just like sparkly duochrome acrylic paint, and that is all of the things that I love in the world, so I really like them. I added a bit of shading underneath some of her scales with a red acrylic paint. With a light pink paint, I also added a highlight to some of the scales. With that, her tail is done, and here she is with her head back on. Oh my god, I just love her. I just want to make mermaids all day long. Of course she needs some rainbow pearls, so I took some pearls that I got off Amazon, and I took some Elmer's glue all, and I glued some of those to her tail. I'm being pretty simple with her hair, which like I kind of always am because I hate, I just hate hair so much. Like doll hair, my hair, I hate everybody hair. But I just braided a couple pieces in the front and I pulled her hair back and I took a chopstick, heated it up with my hair straightener and curled the hair. I don't have footage of this, but once her hair was all done, I sprayed her hair with hairspray. I find if you don't on dolls, if you work with yarn hair specifically, the curls will fall out. Of course she needs glitter. I got this like chunky glitter off Amazon. I buy all of my art supplies off Amazon, and I've been waiting for an excuse to use it. So I'm using it on this doll because it kind of looks like scales. So I'm taking Elmer's glue all and I'm adding that, and then I'm putting the chunky glitter on top of it. I wanted her to have like a veil thing happening, so I took this strip of tulle that's sort of in the shape of an elongated football, and I hot glued that to her head with a pearl. For her top, alright, down the street from me there is a store and it sells very intense statement earrings as well as old video games. It's just a very eclectic selection of things, but I picked up some earrings from there, and the first pair that I picked up were these like filigree sort of earrings. I'm cutting off the needle part of them with my wire cutters. Once that was cut, I took a gold chain and a ring, I attached those together, and then I attached them to the set of earrings. I hot glued her top onto her chest. I always picture my mermaids with crowns, so I'm going to be making her one out of these crystal beads and jewelry wire. I actually first made this crown and decided that I just wasn't crazy about it. It was kind of heavy looking on her. I'm creating another crown that is a little bit, I guess, lighter looking. So I went in initially and I created a base with a thicker wire. It has loops at the end, this is so that I can pin the crown onto her head, and then I'm basically threading the crystal beads and then wrapping wire, and then bead and then wrapping wire, and I'm just alternating this. I wrap the beads with a final layer of wire to hold them in place. To decorate her crown, I have these gold nail art beads, and I'm just gonna be, my cat is screaming. I'm just gonna be hot gluing these on her crown. To add one final detail to her crown, I'm taking these charms that I got from the craft store and some more chains. I'm hooking those charms onto the chains and then hooking those onto her crown. And I love her crown. Like, I just really like this design way more than the first one that I made. I wanted her to have more like flowiness to her design, so I'm taking a strip of tulle and I'm sewing this to these gold rings. I'm sewing one on each side of the tulle. I put these strips onto her wrists as well as another chain, and it's like she has the fanciest of handcuffs. I wanted to bedazzle her chest some more, so I took a combination of flat back pearls, really tiny ones, and rhinestones, and I'm gluing those in place with Elmer's glue wall. Alright, so she's supposed to be like royal, so I figured I'd give her a scepter or a staff thing because I just like making staffs. And also, I bought these extremely fancy earrings from that strange store. So I am taking those, I cut them down with my wire cutter, and I took this barbecue stick that I cut down with a saw, and I am gluing those in place. At first I went in with hot glue, and then I reinforced it with epoxy glue. To sort of ease the transition from fancy earring to stick, I wrapped wire around where they connect, so gold wire, and I'm painting the stick with a deep purple that I'm trying to create a gradient with so it gets lighter as it gets towards the bottom. Oh hello, metallic watercolors from Arteje, we meet again. I'm taking the same purple color that I used on her tail, and I'm putting a layer of that on her staff. I paint a layer of that dragonfly glaze as well on the staff. For the bottom of the staff, I hot glued foam and a pearl. Wire makes everything better, and I also just bought a ton of jewelry wire for this project, so I'm wrapping gold jewelry wire around the staff. I hot glued those gold pearls that I used on her crown on her staff, as well as half back tiny pearls and rhinestones. This is her finished staff, and I just gotta say, this is one of the prettiest things I've ever made. I just love it. I want a big one for me. I'll walk around with it. If anybody messes me, I'll bonk them on the head with it. I don't know what I'm talking about. But I really like how this doll turned out. Let me know if you guys like her too. If you don't like her, actually don't let me know that. It'll crush my little heart. Let me know if you guys are making a mermaid doll, or if you're as obsessed with Mermay as I am, because I just really like making mermaids. I took a couple photos of her with my mermaid doll from last year, and I just really dig how they both look like they're from kingdoms, but they're like different kingdoms, you know what I mean? Because they're both like mermaid princesses. But maybe this one that I made this year is from a kingdom where they wear handcuffs as accessories. Who knows? They have different cultures. I don't know. I'm not creative enough to think of stories for my dolls. So yeah, definitely check out, by the way, before I go, check out Josephine's Creatures doll and Fantasy Finder. I will have both of their dolls linked down below, and we'll just have a little mermaid party up in here. Like this video if you guys like this video. Subscribe, it makes me happy, and I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. And happy Mermay. Alright, bye guys.